was discussing armed forces and AI. So I really hope that next time we have a session, we deal with this point more, because armed forces and the defense sector these days are quite inseparable. Though it is a paradox that as army personnels, we are not allowed to be on social media. We are not allowed to be on Instagram or the other social media channels. But at the same time, army is hugely digitized. And every day, we are raising the notches and raising the bars even higher. So let me just give you one very basic idea. Well, it is a global village these days. Whatever happens in Ukraine or Russia or Israel or Palestine affects every single person, even in India. May it be business, may it be technology. Since I represent armed forces, I would like to tell you that whenever any new technology in defense is brought in any part of the world, automatically the technology of globe takes a rise. So nothing happens in isolation. I have a very interesting take on leadership. Since I'm representing my organization, I will not speak on AI in leadership today, but I will tell you that for the people of armed forces, leadership is still a contact sport. We meet, we talk, we engage, we know about each other. क्योंकि आज भी जोश, जुनून, जज्बा, खून, पसीना, यही हमारी जिंदगी है. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to be here and proud to be representing my organization, that is Armed Forces. So I'm very, very, very glad to be on this exalted platform here of Indian Tech Talent League, and my compliments to entire team of My Anatomy, ITTL, for putting up this amazing show. You see the topic that I have got to speak. From battlefield to boardroom, evolution of leadership in disruptive era. Let me tell you, my dear ladies and gentlemen, last 30 years of my life, I have actually lived, breathed this topic. And it would be my pleasure to share few life lessons. Let me begin by wishing all of you a very, very happy new year. And let me transport you to a very different New Year celebration. A dark, cold, moonless night. Date 31st December 1997. Place Leh Military Airfield. Altitude 11,000 feet. Rarefied atmosphere. For those who do not know what rarefied atmosphere means, ask a Fauji. Rarefied atmosphere means that the oxygen is less, very less. Your lungs scream for oxygen. This night, the mercury had dipped down to minus 15 degrees. And when the world was celebrating to usher in the new year, a lone lady officer was supervising her team that was tasked with clearing the snow from the military airstrip. The purpose was to clear the airstrip so that the aircrafts of Indian Air Force could land in the morning. The Indian Air Force is the only connect for every logistic supply and movement of men and material. Well, this was also the time when women officers were very few in this alpha male domain, all across men, and only one lady officer. That night, all eyes were on that lady officer. Whether she could lead her men, battle-hardened men, in this physically and mentally daunting scenario. Can she get the runway cleared? Can she make it possible for the Indian Air Force planes to land well on time? There was no margin of error. She knew that her personal conduct and professional acumen is the only key to survive. Rather, not only survive, my dears, but to thrive. After many hours of relentlessly being on tarmac, motivating her team to work harder, she finally was satisfied and gave a thumbs up to ATC. A big shabash to her team. They all said Happy New Year to each other with steaming hot mugs of tea brought from the langar. The men, they silently accepted her as the leader. This was the sight next day. 1st of January 1998, 0430 hours, AN-32 of Indian Air Force takes off from Chandigarh Military Air Base to land smoothly at Leh Military Airfield. Why am I sharing this with you? The lesson. Your actions get you acceptance and respect. So as the first lady officer in high altitude and extreme cold climate area, I was tested and judged on many fronts. 2 years later down the line, in 1999, the Battle of Kargil took place. Icy heights at an altitude of 16,000 to 18,000 feet got embroiled in a battle. By this time, I was well entrenched in my role as a supply chain management expert in high altitude. I became the first lady officer to be part of battle zone in Operation Vijay. I fought this battle as a mother of one child, pregnant with another child. I was in second trimester of pregnancy. My husband was fighting the battle in the most treacherous area of Dras. But above all, I fought this battle as a soldier of Indian Army. Gender does not matter. This is a story of a time when there were just a handful of women who had any visibility in the space. And the culture was very different. Well, it is important for me as a trailblazer of that time to share the story with all of you, so you know what it takes to be first in any domain. Well, you are right. On the extreme, my left, that is me. And this is just before the Battle of Kargil started. Now the demographic has shifted radically. We have a statistically larger saturation of women in armed forces and also in corporate boardrooms. So to the women who are present in audience today, I will say, and please, I request you to take this message far and wide, that times are surely changing, with more and more women stepping into the careers that were traditionally male-oriented. The mental makeup of society is fast changing. But many challenges still remain just the same. One of them being work-life, family balance. And of course, with the changing times, this balance is not restricted only to women. Men too face the same problems. The work-life, family balance. But for women, you can be a mother, a young wife, you may have pressing family responsibilities, but just know that quitting is never an option. It is a very done thing that the first casualty in any kind of problem becomes a woman's career. The first thing you decide to leave is your career. Quitting is not an option. Even if the work is physically or intellectually challenging, you have to hang in there. You have to learn. You have to prove your worth. One thing is very important for every woman especially. You have to find your support system. That support system can be in form of your husband, can be in form of your family, it can be in form of your extended relations, friends, or simply a maid that you have employed. But learn to keep a support system that will help you navigate through difficult times. And remember, by choosing a path that is less traveled, you will open the doors to many others who perhaps lack the courage to do so. I can, in a nutshell, just share with you that if I stand here as a woman officer, from the very initial batches of girls coming into army, last 30 years have taken the sweat and blood. When we started women in Indian Armed Forces, it was called WSES, Women Special Entry Scheme. For all you know what a scheme means, chali chali, nahi chali, dabba ban. It started as a scheme. The sweat and blood of my generation made this commission into short service commission. Thereafter came the permanent commission. Recently, the girls have started coming into the post or the appointments of commanding officers. You take a time, 93, 94, when I joined army, people did not know that girls have joined army. My jawans looked at me कि जैसे कोई बच्चा फैंसी ड्रेस में फौजी वर्दी पहन कर आ गया. They could not comprehend that girls have come into army. From that time, now when the women have started commanding the installations, what a huge journey it's been. And these disruptive eras take us forward. And I have a dream and I have a vision. And God, give me the opportunity to live to see the day when a whole squadron of Rafales is being flown by the women fighter pilots. Allow me to live to that day when a whole squadron of armored tanks is not only being taken forward by women, but being commanded by a women armored officer. I want to live to see the day when the BrahMos and the pinnacles of the artillery are being commanded by the women officers and damaging enemy targets by their sheer accuracy of the firepower. God, allow me to live to see that day when the nuclear submarine of Indian Navy is being commanded by a woman naval officer. हम लाए हैं तूफान से कश्ती निकाल के, इस देश को रखना मेरे बच्चों संभाल के. That is what I say to all this generation here. And to the organizations, and many of which are being represented by people in audience, I would like to say that organizations these days, big or small, are spotlighting on gender inclusivity. But more than just a concept, the focus should be on accepting it as the natural way forward. Leaders must make sure that the people feel important enough to be heard, rather than dismissing good ideas due to stereotyping. Give credit to work ethics, ideas, and skills, not gender identity. You know, this is a lesson from armed forces that getting to know people for what they are is a powerful antidote to bias. And as you build your efforts to be more gender inclusive, just know that a happy, cared for people who feel respected and valued do their best work. And these environments attract and retain the best talent. The HRs here would know how much it takes to bring a person on board and then to train and then to put that person to do the work on that desk. And just because the culture of the company is such that the people leave, meter dobara zero se shuru hota hai. So, there is a very interesting phrase, and that says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. आपका स्ट्रैटेजी कितनी भी अच्छी हो, लेकिन अगर आपकी टीम का, आपकी कंपनी का कल्चर ठीक नहीं है, तो none of this strategy is going to work. So focus on culture, you will sail through the disruptive times. But the question today is that what should be the leadership like in this age of disruption? What should be those skills and strategies for business leaders during unprecedented times or times of change, or as the topic of the day says, the disruptive era? So given the limited time at my disposal, I will only focus on 2 points right now. First is situational awareness, and the second is power of communication. Now, at any point of time, millions of situations are happening all around us. Sometimes a small oversight can snowball. You all must have heard that a small sound can trigger an avalanche. Murphy's Law, all of you must have heard that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And let me be the doomsday mouthpiece and say, everything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time. So that is a setback. If the problems vary, then degree and magnitude of setback will also vary. So it actually depends on what is at stake. Your setback is directly equivalent to what is at stake. So in corporate world, it can be missed opportunity, damage to mental peace, physical fitness, less time with family. Sometimes financial stakes can be very high and damage the company's credibility, which is very serious and has to be avoided at all cost. But what does setback and failure means in a military operation? A, loss of national glory, impact on national security. And it is always, my dears, a matter of life and death. For people who are wearing uniform, the mistakes come back home in body bags. Children become orphan. Wives turn widows. It's a wheel that cannot be turned back, and therefore, there are no runners-up in war. There is no dress rehearsal to martyrdom. And so, being first time right is not a desired business outcome for us. It is a Bible sentence. It is a Brahma Vakya. So if you clearly give me your next 10 to 15 minutes, mold these life lessons that I'm going to share with you into your individual respective job profiles, and you train your team to follow it religiously, I can assure you today that 99.99% times you will be right first time. 0.01%, I'm leaving for the act of God. But after you have faced that setback, through act of God, you upgrade your SOPs. Train, retrain, re-retrain, till your responses become a muscle memory. And a reflex action makes you 100% crisis ready next time. But these are not mere words. How many of you remember this? Operation Black Tornado. 26 November 2008, a devastating terror attack on Taj Hotel, Mumbai. It shook the nation. We all were glued to our television sets, witnessing the horrifying visuals non-stop for 3 days. अब आपने अगर एक फौजी बुलाया है तो अगर मैं आपको वही सुनाऊंगी जो आपने पढ़ा है तो क्या मजा है. So let me share with you a side story. On 27th November, a squadron of 220 NSG Black Cats, comprising of highly trained commandos, bomb disposal squads, sniffer dogs and weapons specialists, were flown in from Delhi to Mumbai. At that point of time, the mission was only one: Taj. Eliminate every single terrorist without causing any collateral damage to innocent civilians. But gradually, as the ground position became clear, it was told that the hostages are taken not at one, but at 3 locations: Taj, Shabad, and the Trident. Do you know that the information was radioed to the commander of these NSG commandos while the plane was in mid-air? The 523 commandos had already taken off for one mission. Now they were told that there is not one, but 3 missions. The training of Indian Armed Forces is such that automatically one mission was divided into 3. The leadership automatically emerged to take over these missions. Without any chaos, the equipment, the ammunition, the resources were divided. Strategy was made. There was no clamor for position of the leader. No feedback. No 360-degree feedback. No appraisal. The training and warrior mindset of the junior leadership was such that they were ready to lead, they were ready to deliver, execute it to the T as per the training and intent of commanding officer. Pay attention to these words. Intent of the commanding officer. This means people, though they were working independently, they were all converging to the intent of the commanding officer. So they were operating differently, they had different strategies, they had divided resources, they were united in the objective of the mission. So if you see the middle picture, and that is the Shabad house, the NSG commandos were slithering down through a thin rope from Indian Air Force Mi-17 helicopter. They were wearing their black dangris, bulletproof patkas, automatic guns, landing directly on the roof. They were the targets. When they were mid-air, a stray bullet from a terrorist down below could have damaged this chopper. And in that heavily populated area, the collateral damage would have been very high. But every factor was taken into account before this operation was carried out. And mind you, they only had time till they were flying. What is that? An hour or 2? With foresight, deductions were carried out and a successful operation was executed. There is only one word. The team was crisis ready. That day, these Jabas, they came as a team, completed the mission went back as a team. Till date, give me one name that you know of that NSG Commando team member. They are nameless, faceless bravehearts who focused on the mission. Well, there are so many leadership and teamwork lessons from that day that it is a session completely for another day. But what I want to share is that if you at any point of time get a chance to visit NSG Center at Manesar, you should see their simulation training for various situations. With every such situation, their SOPs are upgraded. Their trainings are done so that we are first time right every time. So what is that takeaway from all of us here? What do I want to tell you? I'm not going to just tell you a story and take your time. I want to give you a lesson. How you can be first time right. Of course, you don't have to wear a uniform to serve the nation. All of us are serving nations in our own ways. So, it is vital that intent of leader and objective of project is clear till the junior most member of the team. Even if the leader is not present to micromanage, still, different team works as a cohesive unit. In armed forces, we have a concept of war games, where war-like scenarios with multiple crisis situations are simulated. Far-fetched ideas, far-fetched problems. They are brainstormed. So commanders brainstorm the responses. The responses are made threadbare. These are rehearsed by the troops on ground. All practical problems are studied, time management is worked out, logistics are worked out, so that at the time of crisis, multiple functionaries like infantry, artillery, armored tank squadrons, air force, navy, logistic installations, everyone comes cohesively together. And then we never say that we do not know, the right hand does not know what left hand is doing. This never happens in armed forces. Our responses are cohesively practiced so that there is no confusion. And on the same concept, I have established war rooms for various corporate giants and MNCs. This has helped them to be future ready and to stay ahead of the learning curve. So it's been a very interesting exercise when this war game room is established with corporates. It is said that mind is like a parachute. It works best when it is open. You all can imagine what a parachute will be of any use if it does not open mid-air. So keep asking yourself, what if this happens? How will I respond? What if this happens? How will I use my resources? What if this happens? What if this happens? What if? Constantly keep upping the game. Constantly keep asking the question. Brainstorm the responses. Brainstorm the solutions. Train your team how to perform during contingencies. Practice the procedures and SOPs till it becomes a muscle memory. In armed forces, we have a maxim. Those who sweat in peace, they bleed less in war. Nothing. You all are very mature people, heading huge organizations, and you know that nothing major happens overnight, not even pandemic. There are feelers, there are trends, there are market forces. What to say of this? Even battles do not happen overnight. Movement of enemies is there, build-up of logistics is there, which is evident to the trained eye, which we call battle indicators. So as a leader, develop the skill of situational awareness. What do I mean by situational awareness? ये कोई बहुत बड़ा word नहीं है. If you try to understand, it is have an ear to the ground, have an eye on the future, and a practical head firmly placed on your shoulders. That is the first step to risk management. Your decision-making abilities during difficult times depends on how well you can judge the environment before the crisis has actually struck. Your SOPs will take care of the day-to-day working. No one needs a leadership in peace situation. You need a leader only when the going gets tough. So rise to the occasion. To many of us, the pandemic came as an act of God. But to the people who strive to be first time right, the indicators of the start of pandemic were emerging very evidently. So, be situationally aware. Finally, the hallmark of leadership during disruptive times is the power of communication. When leaders communicate their expectations with open attitude, they provide clarity and logic to their team. You all must have seen that your team will have more trust in you when you are transparent and when you give clear instructions, because clarity limits miscommunication and confusion. So let me just share with you a very, very interesting story. This is the Battle of Dograi, Indo-Pak War 1965. Dograi is a small village on the outskirts of Lahore, and one of the bloodiest battles of the sector were fought here. Jawans of 3 Jat Regiment launched an offensive against invincible Dograi, Pakistani artillery ka stronghold, infantry ka stronghold. Their commanding officer was Lieutenant Colonel Desmond Hayde Mahavir Chakra. Now here we are talking about communication. So listen to this story with that angle. So soldiers were spread across Ichogil Canal. They were in platoon strengths and they were fanning out from the bridgehead towards enemy. बहुत भारी गोला बारूद चल रहा था. Colonel Desmond Hayde was going from trench to trench, platoon to platoon, speaking to the people, speaking to the soldiers amidst the heavy shelling. और अगर मैं आपको जाट ट्रुप्स के बारे में बताऊं, तो उनका जो बोलने का अंदाज है वो बिल्कुल जुदा है. As a leader, you speak to your team in a language that they understand best. Colonel Desmond Hayde, an Anglo-Indian officer, asked his troops, मेरा क्या हुक्म है? What are my orders? And the Jawan said, Sab Dograi. Very clear instructions. Where will we go? Dograi. Where will we meet? Dograi. And then he said, Kal raat ka khana kahan khayenge? And the Jawan said, Sab Dograi. Now he ups the ante and says, अगर सियो साबड़े गोली लग गई तो क्या करोगे? Yani, if your senior leadership buckles and is not physically present, do you need micromanagement or do you know how to work ahead and gain the objective? So when he said that, सियो साबड़े गोली लग गई तो क्या करोगे? तो one of the jawans said, सियो साबड़े कांधे पे टाक के ले जाएंगे, लेकिन रुकेंगे डोगराई जाके. यानी सीओ साहब को कंधे पे उठा के ले जाएंगे. We will carry the leader physically, but we are going to stop only at Dograi. And let me tell you, even if only one soldier was alive that day, the mission was so clear that even that single soldier would have flown the tricolor. So ladies and gentlemen, leadership is a contact sport. Don't leave it only on AI. More so during disruptive times when the team is looking at the leadership for guidance. A leader has to connect with the team in a language that they understand. and create an emotional bond, not a transactional. I only have one suggestion, that CEOs or the chief executive officers, if they start thinking of themselves as chief ecosystem officers, especially after the pandemic, when someone is working from home, someone is working from remote location, instead of being a chief executive officer, if you start working as a chief ecosystem officer, it's going to be quite interesting. Well, never let a good crisis go to waste. This is my last slide for the day, and I would just like to tell you that during disruptive times, only those organizations thrive where leaders take initiative. The team takes ownership of the task, and together they think of out-of-box solutions. There may be times when only thinking out of box is not enough. You have to erase the box. Think of a new solution. Absolute de novo. And if you can do that, you will be the leader of all times. So ladies and gentlemen, feeling of belonging evolves where respect is earned, honesty is appreciated, loyalty is returned, and trust is gained. And such a team can find solutions to every problem in disruptive times or otherwise. That is all from me. Thank you and Jai Hind.